Okay, good evening again. My name is Antoine Leboyer. I am the Managing Director of the Software and AI Venture Lab. Can I ask how many of you guys have heard about the Venture Lab? Oh, good, thank you. How many of you are entrepreneurs? Okay, not enough. So I hope at the end of the talk I will try to get you guys to think about this. I'm very grateful of Camilla and Claire to have invited me because it's a topic that I wanted to discuss for quite a while. And I wanted to speak on my own, not on behalf of the Venture Lab, but talk about, as a former entrepreneur, about mental health issues. I don't know how many of you have got interest, but I'm assuming that if you are here, that's because it's an important topic for you. So I'd like to tell you about my own story, okay? Let me say a few words. So let me start by a few words about me. So you got two elements. So I'm the managing director of the Venture Lab. We help actually 200 startups in software and AI. Before this, I was the president and CEO of a software company called GSX, which I ran for 13 years. And there were about 50 people at the end, and our investors and I, we made an 8-time returns. That's the fairy tale, okay? That's the fairy tale. That's what I've said. That is what normally you express when you want to describe what you've been doing. The reality is that it was difficult. It was very difficult. It was absolute hell. Okay, and this is why I'd like to describe to you what really happened and what was the impact of these 13 years. So, like every founders, I face classic challenges. So every founders, once again, we work with quite a lot of startups at the Venture Lab, and there's always founders challenge. Founders don't get along well with each other. I've had actually 4 CTOs. And that's not, that's not something I recommend, okay? But this happens quite a lot. And the other thing is that if you're an entrepreneur, then you are working and operating in an environment of huge maximum uncertainty. So of course, we made some hypotheses, we tried to get a sense for what was happening, but the market was changing much faster than we expected, and also very, very differently. That's classic, every entrepreneur that my colleagues and myself we work with, they face the same problem. I also face some problems which actually were pretty difficult. So you remember I ran the company for 13 years, okay? There were 4 months, I remember each of them, where 1 or 2 days before the date of payroll, I couldn't pay the team. I didn't have the cash, okay? When you have these guys, you don't sleep well, okay? Do I need to explain why you don't sleep well? That was absolutely terrible. That happens to me 4 times. The last time when it happened, it was because there was something called COVID happening. We usually would have an easy first quarter because we had 2 very big contracts which would arrive at the end of the year. It would give us something like 1.5 quarters of cash. So we're always very, very happy, except that at this time, because of COVID, the people that we were supposed to talk to, we couldn't get them on the phone, okay? So that you guys understand, that's what happens when you are a founder. It all comes to you, okay? So I remember because I discussed with my CFO, and we took the list of the people, of all the suppliers, and I picked, and I picked up my phone, I called each and every one of them, and I says, we can't pay you. That's not easy, okay? That's not easy at all when you got something like this, okay? And everyone understood, by the way, which is why when you got something, pick up your phone. But that's happened to me 4 times, that's terrible. Okay, that's nothing compared to what happened there. My company is Swiss. We had a subsidiary in the US, we had an office in Singapore, and we had an office in France. And the French office battled during 5 years with the French tax authorities. I still don't know exactly what happened, but during 5 years, they told us that we hadn't paid our taxes. They told us that we had what is known technically as a stable establishment, which is that the headquarter was not the headquarter and that it was actually the French subsidiary, which was the real headquarter. I had to fight like crazy. I still don't understand what happened exactly. All I know is that the guy who was doing the principal analysis, it was in the south of France, asked me questions which indirectly was related to whether I was Jewish or not. In France, in the south of France, once again, I can't be sure, but I was very surprised at the time by some of the questions which were asked to me. And in south of France, half of the population at the election voted for the extreme right. Okay, and I still don't know if this was the case or not. But all I know is that we were accused of having not paid our taxes, and I had to fight like crazy. And when you have something like this, and the market is changing, and you have to make sure that you can get this to operate. That was half of my time during 5 years. Okay, we won. Okay, make no mistake, we won. But I had to go and write to the mayor of the town where we were operating. I had to go and get support from politicians, and in the end, we won. So these are two articles which were done. If you guys understand French, by the way, you can actually hear a video of myself at the Assemblée Nationale, at one of the commission of the Assemblée Nationale, talking about the story. I couldn't tell half of what I'm more or less taking you. I didn't mention the guy who asked me funny questions because I was trying to make sure everything was happening. But this is what happens when you're a founder. Now let me tell you, this one was absolutely terrible. Okay, during 5 years, I thought that I was going to lose everything which I'd been sweating and fighting for. In the end, as you can see, it ended well. I had these two guys which came to make an article about me, and I remember this one because I started explaining this, and usually when I explain, I tend to smile, and it's pretty nice. And the guy says to me, "Look, we need to make picture, but for someone who's gone through all what you've gone, you're smiling too much." So this is why I took all the documents which we produce, I put them on my hand, it felt like this, and I was really unhappy at this time, and the guy did a marvelous picture of me. Now, the question that when you got something like this, how do you survive? Okay, and I really want to talk about survival, okay? So the first thing is that we are entrepreneurs. So when we have issues, what do? We roll up our sleeves, we work hard, and we fight, okay? I can see a lot of you guys, and I can see many people nodding. So we are entrepreneurs. When we have problems, we take the problems heads on. We work hard. We work longer hours. We are terrible, okay? I'm glad to see people who are, I'd like to hear some of you guys while you are nodding, because that's what we do, okay? We are a team, we are hard workers. We got the problems, there's no problem we can't actually solve by working more. And when you do this, there's also something which happens, is that you have to learn to stay calm, okay? I realized that one day I was in my office. We, of course, we had open space, and then, my office, there was a glass, and everyone could see me. And I realized that the company totally stopped when they saw me more or less, like this on the phone and so on. So what you do is that you learn, when terrible things are happening to you, to stay calm. No one sees what was happening, okay? So you learn how to stay calm. It's important, you are the anchor in the company, you have to learn to stay calm, okay? But actually it yields results, but it comes at a huge price, okay? The first one is that you have the ability to, quote unquote, not panic when something is happening. The downside is that actually what you develop is something which I understand is called emotional numbness, which is that when you got good stuff, you also don't enjoy it, okay? It's terrible, okay? That's happened to me. When I read the description of what is emotional numbness, I felt that it was absolutely written for me. The other thing which is a problem, which is a much bigger problem, is that there's something that the specialists call the fight or flight syndrome, okay? Fight or flight is something which is the following. When you have in front of you, a dog barking, you either, you react. You react immediately. Some people go, and say, well, let's use this reaction to forget about everything else and leave, okay? Another possibility is that when you are into something like this, you're going to fight, okay? That's a normal reaction. You forget about everything else. You really focus about this. In some of these events which I went 3 times to the ministry in France, and I had unbelievably tense situation where I was discussing and so on. And when you do this, I can tell you, I remember every second. There may have been 6 people in the room. I remember every movement of every one of them. I can actually take a piece of paper, a pencil, write everything, okay? And what happens is that this is so intense because you got to control everything, and you got to control that. What happened is that it's as if your nervous system is hardwired, okay? Because it's so unbelievably intense. And this happened to me, okay? This is the syndrome fight or flight. The issue is that after this is gone, it's so intense, it stays with you a long time. And I want to mention this because once I was driving on the motorway with my family, and I start thinking about this event. And I don't control my thought. I'm back into the room. And suddenly I was 160 and I crashed my car, okay? Where I crashed my car with my family in there. And I'm going to apologize for this. I actually got diagnosed with PTSD. Okay, I got diagnosed with post-traumatic stress syndrome. And this crash was the one which led me to understand that I had something, and I got diagnosed with PTSD. So, I'm not alone. Okay, there's a study which has shown that compared to the general audience, entrepreneurs are twice as likely to experience depression, 6 times more likely to have ADHD, 10 times to have more bipolar disorder, twice more to have suicidal thought. Okay, except bipolar, I meet all the others. So we are not alone. Okay, but in fact we are totally alone. Okay, and I really want to mean it. Are you going to go to your employer or investor and say, "Oh, you know what? I realized that I got PTSD. You guys, can I have some more money because I don't know how to meet payroll?" Okay. Or come and join my company. By the way, I got PTSD and I got depression and so on. Do join the company. Okay. No, you can't do this. So there's actually an interesting study which was done by PitchBook. And they tried to do a survey. I don't know how to do the survey because I think the numbers are much too high. But less than 20% actually are going to open about their stress anxiety. And only 10%, I cannot even believe that there are 10% which are happy to discuss this with their investors, okay? So I'm not alone because there are many people, but when you are a founder, you're very alone, especially when these sort of things is happening. So what to do, okay? Well, remember, we're entrepreneurs, so we roll our sleeves and we don't try to be too affected by what's happening. So the first thing is that you get some information. Again, when something happens, I want to know what's happening, I want to read. That's true when, new technology arrives, so same thing about this. So actually I started reading. And thank you, the New York Times, I actually read an article which described the symptoms of the veterans which had been deployed in Iraq, Afghanistan, and they described their PTSD syndrome. So I discovered that I had PTSD because of my reading this, and this is where I reach out to get support. There are quite a lot of support which exists right now. In fact, at the Venture Lab we have a podcast which is called Entrepreneurial Realities. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. There are a lot of great resources. I actually did an interview with someone whose name is Maura Aaron Mills, and she has another podcast, and she's written a book which is called The Anxious Achiever. Okay, my guess is that it applies to all of you guys which are in this room. Okay, and do listen to this episode because she described her story, but she should describe what you got to be doing. So get some information. And by the way, this is the first talk. There will be some others. Do come for the other one, it's really important. So first thing, get some information. Second thing, know yourself. Don't wait for the car with your family to crash to realize that you got something, okay? I mean, this is really important. You have to be able to understand what happens to you. You don't want, of course, to spend your time like in a narcissist and try to look at everything which is happening. You got to have the ability to know yourself and realize when something is happening. You got to know yourself. It's really, really important, okay? Don't feel guilty, okay? The reaction from many people is that, oh, you have mental health issues. You know, I remember we had once at the Venture Lab a meeting of the managing directors, and I come and I said that I'm concerned that some of the great entrepreneurs that I work with are under mental health stress. Everyone looked at me as if I told everyone that they have, venereal disease, or they drink too much, or they take drugs. No, you don't feel guilty. This sort of thing is normal. Actually, my sister runs a foundation on mental health in France. I stole this chart from her, okay? You treat mental health like a disease. When you have a flu, you go to a doctor. You ask the doctor for an advice. You take the medication the doctor tells you to take, and you listen to them. There's no difference in between a flu and mental health, except that once, you can probably see the colors on when you got, you're sneezing and whatever. But this is the same thing, if it's called mental health disease, that's the other world disease. So you actually treat mental health like a disease, okay? And once again, I'm back to know yourself. If suddenly you have a heart rate which is more elevated, and if things are happening, you treat this like a disease, okay? And then find people whom to speak. So of course, not from your employee, not from your investors. I understand that, this is going to be shot and there will be a YouTube later. I'm going to send this to 3 people. One of them lives in Munich, another one in France, and the third one in California. So these are people that you can speak openly and you can rely. I want to come to the third one. Don't talk to your family about this. My wife once told me something which was something that I still remember. I think she's unbelievably right, as always. When you're an entrepreneur, one day is fabulous, the other day is terrible. Another day is fabulous, okay? So you have an unbelievable roller coaster. Once he told me something like, please don't tell me about the whole thing. In the end, it's okay, but I can't stand the roller coaster. I don't know what's happening. Leave me out of this, okay? So you want to be able to find people whom you can talk, who are people that you can speak openly, you can rely, not your investors, not your employee, and not your family, I'm sorry, okay? So this is important. And then the sixth thing is that you call us, okay? And I really mean it. I'm not doing a sort of, advertisement for the Venture Lab, because the 3 of us at the Software AI Venture Lab, so Bastien, Berger, Yadminton, and myself, we have one common goal. And this is why we are here. We want to create the support structure that we did not have when we were entrepreneurs. And the 3 of us were entrepreneurs, okay? And this means that we are happy to talk to you guys about technology, term sheet, how to get customers, how to make a great website, and so on. But we're also here to talk about mental health and your well-being. So I don't know how to conclude, okay? So I asked a few friends about this. One of them actually sent me a picture of the Nicholson movie, A Fly on the Cuckoo's Nest, and I was very tempted, but I didn't take this. All I was the following. I showed this to one of my colleagues this morning, and he says, the likelihood is that 80% of the people believe it doesn't apply to them, okay? I actually thought when he said 80%, he was going to say something like 80% applies. No, 80% and many people believe that this does not apply to them. That everyone believes it happens to the others, okay? So maybe not you guys, but many, many people believes. So when it happens, not if it happens, you acknowledge it without guilt and you just address it heads on. Thank you.